Good morning. All right.
Hello, how are you doing?
Wake up, morning time. Open
Right
the
then,
curtain, bare sunshine. Morning,
As you're
guys.
probably now beginning to be aware, we went live at 9 o'clock this morning because that was the agreed time that we were going to be pushing this live. Over the last couple of weeks, we as a channel have been involved in some talks. Gary Neville really does feel like the ringleader of this, while I don't think he would probably take that credit. He definitely is. He's sort of rounded up all the broadcasters, people like Jan-Anger Fjortoft, Jamie Carragher, Darren Fletcher, Gary Lineker, Jamie Redknapp, Micah Richards and Laura Woods. And then you've got journalists, Henry Winter, Oliver Holt, John Cross, and Andy Mitten, ourselves, Redmen, Arsenal Fan TV, and even the likes of Spencer and True Geordie as well as all kind of like fan broadcasters. We've come together to write an open letter to the government essentially, and we're asking for fans to back what we're asking for. I'll read the open letter out. I'll go through some of the questions that you might have, and we'll take some of your questions and we can have a conversation about it. So this is the letter.
Before we move on to that, if you're interested, and there's one of the key points to this is getting the petition signed, which is really, really important. Now, the link is in the description, and we'll pin it in the chat as well. So if you're thinking of how you can help with this, then click the link, sign the petition. If you're not from the UK, use M160RA as your postcode. That's Old Trafford. But yeah, go on.
Have we got the website as well? I can't remember the name of the website we need. Is it Reclaim the Game?
I'll find that.
Right, so here's the open letter. As football fans, we were appalled by the attempt to set up the European Super League. It was a direct threat to the integrity of the game, destroying the concept of sporting merit and open competition. Supporters came together with one voice to oppose the cynical power grab by a group of wealthy owners. The furious protests were heard and the breakaway fell apart. Now we must make sure this never happens again. Without swift and direct intervention, the return of a European Super League will be a constant threat. We welcome the fan-led government review of the game and hope it leads to lasting change on an array of important concerns, including coordinated strategies to deal with racism, supporter representation within clubs, LGBTQ issues, ticket costs, and the distribution of income. All of those aims can be realised if we take decisive action now. It's time to act. We support government legislation to block any Premier League clubs attempting to abandon the country's football pyramid, and the important one, the appointment of an independent football regulator. This regulatory body would have a duty to represent the interests of supporters, protect against bad practice, adjudicate the overarching body on matters involving the FA, Premier League and EFL, and generally seek to prioritise the wider good of the game rather than allow clubs to act solely in their own interests. We, the undersigned, have a voice in the media. We want your voice to join with ours. Your voices are more important. Say no to the European Super League. Say yes to changing the game for the better. Sign this petition. Make your voices heard peacefully. The link in the description for the petition. And it's signed by Jan-Anger Fjortoft, Joel Bayer, Jamie Carragher, John Cross, Rob Draper, Rio Ferdinand, Darren Fletcher, the Football Supporters Federation, Oliver Holt, me, Rory Jennings, Gary Lineker, Robbie Lyle, Paul Machin, Andy Mitten, Gary Neville, Chris Pajak, Jamie Redknapp, Micah Richards, Stretford Paddock, Henry Winter, and Laura Woods. There's many, many more people behind the scenes. That's what people are asking for, and we want you guys to help us. There's a lot of protests. There's a lot of petitions flying around at the moment. The one that's going to unite all of these together is an independent football regulator. A bit like a referee. You can't leave 11 lads to play another 11 lads and just think it'll be all right. You need a referee. You need someone that is truly independent. It can't be the FA. The FA have been doing it for 150 years and there's been an absolute shit show the last 15 or so. Why do we need a regulator? Well, like a referee, a regulator would safeguard the game impartially, and this currently does not exist. Independent regulation will protect the game against an attempt at the Super League and any other attempts to put money ahead of fans or society. Water companies, energy companies, and even the media with Ofcom have a regulator. Football matters to millions of people, and it should have a regulator of its own that is truly independent. What is the petition trying to achieve? We want to demonstrate the strength of the support for this plan, hoping that the government's fan-led review will listen to the voice of supporters and recommend an independent regulator to be created. The issues that the regulator could look at, the main priority is to get the regulator set up in the first place. After that, the regulatory body would have a duty to represent the interests of supporters first, to protect against bad practice, adjudicate the overarching body on matters involving the FA, the Premier League and the EFL, and prioritise the wider good of the game for fans rather than allowing clubs to solely act in their own self-interests. And if you're thinking we have a regulator in the FA lacks credibility and has proven to be largely ineffective as a government body. It is not modernised and it's not sufficiently independent. Those asking how a group of broadcasters coming together complain about big money in football when they're a massive part of the system. Well, first and foremost, all of the broadcasters and everyone that signed that document are football fans who have a platform, whether they're for Sky or whether it's a YouTube channel, whatever it is. The broadcast money is currently distributed on a basis of competitive success. The Super League attempted to try and take broadcast money and put it into a closed system that would create famine for the rest of the game. As for who else is backing this group, there's a lot of support from all over the show. A poll conducted a few months ago shows that 80% of fans would support the government creating an independent regulator to oversee English football. And is the Premier League owner charter something that you would back instead? And the comment below for this is, we think that it's a good thing that the Premier League recognises the need for stronger regulation and legislation in the game, but they should have nothing to fear from an independent regulator. We can now have a conversation about it, and please get your questions in as well if you've got any questions, and go and sign the thing, sign the petition. Everyone is having this. Everyone, if you're from India, because there's a comment there saying I'm from India, can I sign it? M160RA is your postcode. Congratulations. Get it fucking signed.
We've seen loads of people saying they've signed as well. I'll chuck out a few names for you guys.
This.
Mark
Signed,
Atherton, Martin P has signed. We've got Ed Ball who's signed, Steve Saxon, Ellis, Sadiq's asking how, again, M160RA. Now, remember, this is for a fan-led reform into the game of football. And it means that, ultimately, when you look at the things like fit and proper tests, which have failed a lot.
We're at 3,000 signatures in 10 minutes, by the way. Well done, everyone. Keep it going. Yeah,
so let's see what we can be on by the end of this show. Obviously, they're not all signatures from this show, but get hitting that sign button on the petition.
I've just signed it, by the way.
But I mean, when we look at the fitness and fit and proper tests that have been conducted on owners or haven't been conducted on owners, when you look at things like the ESL, you can try and prevent these things, but also once you have fan-led reform and you have an independent regulator, you then take out, for example, when the Premier League make decisions or the FA make decisions or X, Y, and Z make decisions, we know some decisions are made for the financial reasons rather than the footballing reasons. And hopefully something like this can prevent that from happening, because it'd be an amplifier for fan voices. It'd be an amplifier for fans when serious things are going to happen. Obviously, how much power they're given and all those kind of things will come down to it further down the line.
My one concern, when we was on, so there's been a couple of weeks of talks and different calls, and Jamie Carragher called me Russell Crowe again on a call last week, which was a good laugh.
For us.
Yeah, not for me, but whatever. My one concern with this is a regulatory body is only as good as the powers it's given. You can have a regulatory body and it can have 1,000 people that work for it, but unless it's actually given the power to force change, what good is it? So this has to not only go through government. And here's the thing. I think this government, as we've seen when Marcus Rashford tweets them, they shit it and act. I actually think if this is a popular movement, the government will act and they will give it power.
Andy Knight's just signed. He says, let's take our game back with the super chat. We've also got another super chat from Nathan James, which says, just signed it. Remember, if you're overseas, use the postcode for mother, 16, O, the number, Romeo Alpha, so M16 ORA. Sound like the feds, don't I?
0 RA.
Yeah. Oh, 0.
O's a letter, zero's
Sorry.
a number.
Is it?
Yeah.
I feel like a Marion. Oh.
A lot of people are signing thank you for that. Well, I say thank you. It's, we're all signing it.
What they don't know as well is that
doing it
you
all.
are going to become the basically authoritarian of football.
That'll be me, yeah.
On that,
In a little army uniform.
On
like
that
they
note-
always happen to put on even though they've never been in the army.
I suppose this conversation for PR piss take, right?
Yeah.
right, on that note, yeah, keep that for that. Let's keep this one serious. So on that note, I have seen someone going, is this Gary Neville trying to be the head of this? It's not. He's asking for someone to create an independent regulatory body. Now, the thing with Gary Neville is, right, Gary Neville has been a player. So he's got playing experience and PFA experience. He's been a coach, and he's also been a coach within the FA. He is a club owner. He's been a manager, and he is a fan.
And he's a broadcaster, and,
And a
he
broadcaster,
sees it from pretty
like-
much every angle.
He is probably one of the most sort of rounded out people that can see every single aspect of this, understand it from a play. The only thing I think he's never done is be an agent, right? Yeah. I think he's got every single other angle that comes in at this, and I think it's very much he's a bit like Fergie, and he's like a very trade union kind of head on him. Which is why I think he's been a perfect person to rally the troops for.
If you remember when, and I've had more moments with Gina, but if you remember when, Rio Ferdinand got done, he was trying to make people strike, wasn't he? Which was bad for England against Turkey,
yeah, he was going to make the England team strike, and Rio was like, don't do that, make it worse. But yeah, so Gary Neville has got every angle on this. This is not Gary Neville trying to take power. This is Gary Neville saying this would be good for the game. And his mantra throughout the whole of the calls that we've been on has been, if you've nothing to fear from independent regulation. If you're doing it correctly.
And the other thing he was saying as well is this.
Can you read out that super chat? Because I don't want to read out the name.
Well, let's not read out the name, but someone with a super chat said.
What's the name say, bruv?
Says, Ayets, Mio, Anas.
Yeah. But another thing.
Side good stuff, lads.
Another point he was making, and that was a key point in the calls, was do you think football is working properly as it is? If you don't, then something needs to change. And football isn't going to regulate itself properly. Football, owners and these sort of people aren't going to come together and go, do you know what, should we stop being greedy? Shall we give power to the fans? Shall we make sure that more owners, more of our mates can't come in the game and steal money from football clubs and leave them, half the time bankrupt, half the time, not being ran properly?
Correct.
If you think that they aren't going to do that themselves because, they might have a vested interest in keeping their power, then something needs to change. And there are different ways that things could change, but the one that with the most impact and the most chance of succeeding is the government stepping in and putting in a body that can regulate these owners, because they're not going to do it themselves.
Yeah. What's important about this, though, as well, is that it remains a football thing and a football fan thing, which is led by football fans. Because one of the fears that you can have from this, and it's something which has to be looked at, is almost, the government taking control of the sport.
Yeah,
which is what you never want. You look at them. I don't want any of these to be running the sport.
No.
But it's important that if you're in a position where you can lobby for, whether it's legislation, a form of governing body, not a government body, but a governing body.
Yeah.
Then you can implement change through that way, and through a democratic thing through fans and all those kind of things. And hopefully we'll see. We have seen the FSA on the letter. Obviously, you've got the likes of Andy Mitten, so it's not just one supporter group from Man United coming into it and all those things. But hopefully, you now get Must getting involved and all these other people getting involved, because it's important that the fans
have been
are
contacted.
No, I know they've been contacted, but pushing it again, because you've got the 50+1 thing. Whereas, yes, 50+1 would be great, whether it's voting rights or ownership, because I know there's two kind of different versions that have been floated. But this is probably a little bit more realistic in that if we implement 50+1 now, it's not going to happen for us with the Glazers. Like, you know what I mean? It's probably going to be for future
because
purchases.
it's almost impossible to get the owner of a private business to be forced into selling that business. Obviously, we want to put the pressure on so that they leave.
Yes.
But it's very difficult for the government to say, you legally have to sell that multi-billion-pound corporation that you own. That's really difficult.
What's more likely and what is... So going back a step further, so Tracy Crouch is the secretary for the Department of, is it Culture, Media and Sport? Or Sport, Media and Culture, Media, Culture and Sport. Sorry, I get the words mixed up on that. There is an independent fan review happening and she's leading that. And that fan review is probably going to suggest something like... a regulatory body is required, which is why this petition is coming out at the same time of this to try and hit it from sort of both angles. The review is probably going to recommend it, probably. And then also, like, if it hits 100,000 signatures, then it will also have to be discussed in Parliament. Both of those things happening at once. You've also still got the 50+1 movement, which is going ahead, and I think that petition's doing pretty well as well. I think is it 200 and something thousand that one's hit? So I do not think you will get 50+1 because, as Joe was just saying, the Glazers, like it or not, fair and square bought a business in 2005. You can't, unless you're communist China, you can't necessarily just pull the rug out from under them and go, right, you need to give half of that to the fans now. That will get laughed out of court in 3 seconds flat. But what they can do is they can enact something which is a bit of a diet version of that, which is the 51% of season ticket holders to be polled for any shit ideas like the Super League that you might have.
Yeah.
That is something that they can license. So you need a license to run a pub. You need a license to do a million different things. To drive a car, yeah. But you don't need a license to own a community asset like a football team or run a community asset like a football team. That might be what comes in, is an owner's license, where you are an owner of a community asset like a football team. In that owner's license, it might have something along the lines of, have you polled 51% of your season ticket holders, or do you poll? And if you tick no, you might not get it. That's what all of this is sort of leading towards. I think that the desire is there, the interest is there, and I think that now is the time. So I said this a couple of weeks ago, didn't I, when the ESL thing sort of collapsed. As a fan, I feel like we have got the opportunity to move the Glazers on out of the club. And the death of the Super League, I think, is a massive blow. We've rocked them. We've not knocked them out, but we've definitely staggered them. If you can enact 51% of season ticket holders polled next and introduce an independent regulator, these are things they're going to be like, well, the game's changed. What we thought we were going to do, how we thought we were going to rinse this club, we can no longer rinse it. Let's get it sold. That might be how you get rid of them. You're not going to get the government to come in and say, get out of here, it's gone now. Like, you have to go. That's not going to happen. But you might make it untenable for them.
Yeah, certainly
signatures
not short,
are flying up at the minute.
Certainly
We're on
not short
6,300 odd at the minute. At 10,000, the government have to respond as well, which is good. 100,000, it gets discussed in Parliament.
Yeah, 10,000, they have to acknowledge its existence, don't they?
And obviously 50+1 is something that I think almost all football fans want from what we've seen and what we've heard.
And I think,
but again, this is a good start towards that, where you introduce the concept that these owners have someone that things have to go through, and that is governed and led by fans and fans' opinions. Whereas at the minute, everything that the owners want to do is essentially led by themselves and a flaky financial fair play rule that doesn't do anything no matter what you do. So there needs to be someone that's looking over this and saying, you don't get to act in your own best interests every single time you want to. You have to act in the interest of football. And at the minute, there's no one doing that.
Marcus has got a super chat, and he says, do you think an independent regulator would actually be given the power to influence club ownership decision-making on a club level? And what would the regulator regulate? Regulators!
Mount up. Right. I think, ultimately, this regulatory body will live and die on the power that it's given.
Yeah.
And that will... The power will come from government. The government will say, if you want to be a football team in this country, then you have to abide by what this regulator says. And that's it. And that might be in the form of the license that we mentioned.
But like you said, the amount of power that this is given by the government will, to a certain extent, depend on the groundswell of movement behind the idea itself. So the more people that sign the petition, the more people that come out in support of this, the government will see, actually, we can't just say, oh, owners have to, consult fans whether if they want to put drinks prices up at the stadiums. If there's more people that sign this and get behind it, they will feel that they have to put in stronger protections and stronger rules and laws for this body, because they know that people support this. That's the thing, isn't it? It's all about supporting the government. Like you said with Rashford, when they see that loads of people think the same thing, they shit it and go, okay, you can have what you want.
More U-turns than Usher on tour.
Exactly.
Like, ridiculous. Like, do you think that the broadcasters wanted Ofcom? No. They'd love to show titties at 6 o'clock, right? Do you think that the Energy Ombudsman...
at 6 o'clock.
Do you think that the Energy Ombudsman would want independent regulation that tells them that they can't rinse people on energy prices? No. Like, do you think the water bodies... even all, like... If you're an accountant, I think there's an accountancy ombudsman and stuff like that. I think it exists for loads of professional industries. And guess what? I bet all of them are pretty hated, like referees, right? They're a necessary evil. And the fact that football doesn't have one, everyone thinks that the FA's that. But the FA's got its hand in the honey jar. Like, the FA makes decisions based on what's going to bring the most money to Wembley, usually, right? The FA is not fit for purpose because it's a commercial entity. It needs to be a non-profit entity that sits... But you're right, it has to have the power. Without the power, it's a load of dickheads sitting in a room just stroking each other's backs. Although it's nonsense without the power. And the reason that you have to go to government to get the power is because they're the only people who can enforce anything on the companies that, because they are companies, as much as we hate it, in this country. And for me, the roadmap to doing it, the path to doing it, is some sort of owner's license.
We've got a few comments in here which are like, why aren't AFTV live right now, and why aren't these guys doing this? And I think what you got to realize at the moment is, if people aren't doing something, they can do something in their own way, first of all. And secondly, if someone wasn't a part of the original letter, or wasn't a part, no one's saying, oh, this is our thing, and this is for everybody to get involved.
This is
why a cross-section of fans have got involved. Yeah. Like, this isn't a thing of we're bigger than these, like, or this is that, or this is that. Basically, even if you hate us, just sign it. Just sign it. Like, this is all about football fans. This is not about Stretford Paddock. This is not about him. It's not about Gary Neville. This is not about Rio Ferdinand.
I mean, Jamie Carragher's on it.
Fans.
Our name's under Jamie Carragher's.
Yeah, that's why I didn't want my name on it. I thought it was important, though, that as a channel, Stretford Paddock, we are represented on there, because...
Well, my name's in between Rory Jennings, Chelsea fan, Oliver Holt, and Gary Lineker. Like, that's who's either side of us.
There you go. And Gary Lineker supports about 3 teams.
Yeah, depending on who's winning. On the letter that's been signed, you've got Micah Richards, you've got Jamie Redknapp, you've got Redmen TV have signed it, Arsenal Fan TV have signed it. Like... They will all be doing their own thing at some point, I'm sure. Last night, I emailed
competition.
Every fan channel, every supporters trust and group, and every fanzine for the entire 92 clubs asking for their support on this. This isn't a United issue. This isn't a Liverpool issue. This isn't an Arsenal issue. This is a football in England issue. I'd have emailed all the non-league clubs if I had the fucking time, right?
It probably impacts, actually, smaller clubs more.
Yeah.
The Macclesfields, the Berries and stuff.
Not even that smaller Premier League clubs.
Oh, yeah, but even like them, like these fit and proper tests, like, it's fucked United over. But somehow we're one of those teams that can survive it.
The thing is, luckily, we're a big enough entity that enough people will watch us despite having shit owners. Yeah. Whereas, as we've seen from Bury and even fucking, all sorts of teams, Bolton, that isn't always the case. I mean, this, someone like Sheffield Wednesday at the minute, they've just been relegated to League One because their owners spent a load of money, and then now everyone's on a single-year contract. They've sold.
Not been paying, have they?
Well, they weren't paying the staff for a while. They've sold the ownership of Hillsborough to themselves to make some money. Like, these owners are still in the game at every level, and a team like Sheffield Wednesday, they're a big club, but they might not be able to survive this if things don't go well in League One. We're lucky that, in a way, Man United happen to be a big enough brand across the world, which is what the Glazers care about, that despite them being shit, we can survive. But not all clubs are like that, and we've seen that.
Victor Robertson with a super chat says, Happy National Day to all Norwegians. It's the biggest celebration in our country today. For everyone, happy days for the Norwegian manager. Shout out Ollie and all the Norwegians. Alien Tenor says, fans need a voice. We fund it. Get it signed. Nishit says, signed. Would this regulatory body have any impact on getting these owners out of our club? Well, would it mostly keep stuff like Super League in check? If it was around in 2005, it probably has an impact on them not coming into the club.
100%, because the fit and proper persons test, which isn't fit or proper itself.
What is that test? Who put that test together?
The test is it a real person?
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the fit and proper person test.
I think it's someone going, do you reckon is he fit or what?
Yeah, it's one of those capture things.
You didn't look at the Glazers and tick that box.
It's one of them little capture things. Click every image with a bus on it. And that's the Glazer. Tick, tick. Oh, I've got it wrong. Can I go again? Yeah, try again. Tick, tick.
Has there been one instance of anyone failing it? Oh, actually, didn't Saudi Arabian government fail it trying to buy Newcastle?
Yeah, but that wasn't for the reasons that it should have been.
Why was it?
Because of the reasons that you wouldn't want the Saudi regime owning a football club in England for the sports washing reasons and all that. It was to do with TV money and being sports and this, that, and the other. And the big
conflicts
clubs
of interest rather than
because they were scared of what that would do for them. And I think that was to do with the Super League. I think because those considered themselves to be the big six, they thought, hold on, if Newcastle come in with all this money, whose position in this big six are they taking?
When they've got
probably Spurs or
hundreds
Arsenal.
of billions of pounds.
So it's I think the reasons it was the right decision, but the wrong reasons for it to happen. Ashwin said, "I'm from India and I've signed it twice." Shout out you.
People are saying in the comments, if you use Old Trafford postcode, it might null and void it. So maybe don't do that. Maybe go Google 222A Baker Street or something, or
where did Banana Man live again?
Just guess one.
In case you're wrong.
Guess a postcode.
Or Buckingham Palace. Just guess postcodes.
Yeah,
Don't use Old Trafford.
Google them.
No one pays rent at
British
Buckingham
postcode
Palace,
list. Google that and I've chucked one.
Start at A.
Yeah.
And then crack on from there.
When people are talking about
what we on so far?
Will this over? I'm not sure. I don't kind of
one sec. A Sharp says, on Petition, you can see the constituency where the signatures are from, and Stretford is leading the way. Keep signing with MC.
Yes, up the fucking Paddock! Go on, lads.
When you talk about will this help get rid of the Glazers, like we said before, in my head, there's
9,600, by the way. We're going to hit 10K in a second.
A somewhat obvious path towards owners like the Glazers who are already in place, like you said about ones who aren't, but the ones who are already in place, seeing this as a threat to their endless power as owners of a football club and wanting to leave off the back of that. If it stops them doing things like the Super League, because again, people who said, what about the FA, don't they do this? Where were they when the Super League happened? It took players coming out, it took managers coming out to say that we don't like this for it to stop. They had no real power over that other than, oh, well, you can't play in the Premier League anymore. I know that, that's the Premier League and the FA, but no one has the power over this. It just became a sort of cold war of football money rather than anyone actually being able to say, you can't do this. The way it would happen is, once measures come in that allow fans to have a voice, that stop things like the Super League from happening at ground zero before it even gets this head of steam and letters coming out, if they know that they can't just have free reign over ideas, over money, over the way football is ran, that will deter new owners from coming in the first place who have those intentions only. So hopefully you're going to more likely to get owners that care about football clubs and care about football. Then the owners that are in place will think, well, there's basically just been a hard cap on how greedy we can be as owners. And the reason we're in this in the first place, if we're the Glazers or fan the Glazers, the reason they're in it in the first place is because they want to make as much money as possible. So now the chances of them selling have just increased massively because fans get to vote on things. Legislation is put in place that stops them doing exactly what they want, and presumably that would help them leave Manchester United in the first place.
We've hit 10K on the petition. Well done to everyone that signed it. If you haven't signed it, get signing it. Glenn B with a super chat says should follow the same structure as the FCA, which regulates FCA regulates financial companies, puts customers first, protects them, and fines given when not adhered to. What are you giggling at?
Read the text Janine's just sent me.
It doesn't say text. 10K inside 30 minutes. Apparently, Blake. Can I say that?
Yeah. Don't say the F word. I guess
Apparently,
he's watching.
Blake has said up there in Paddock.
She's at home watching us now, I guess, and has just repeated me saying that. So
Shout out, Blake. Hope you. Good morning, Blake.
Yeah. Hope she's signed the
Make sure you sign.
If you got an email address. I think she probably has.
Ben says, "Hi guys. The fact you have already we haven't solely got it to 10k figures.
No.
Is just incredible. Keep it up, boys. I hope more channels jump on this too. Yeah. If you look at the moment, so we've got a list of all the people that are tweeting it at the moment. So you've got Janard Fjortroff's tweeted it. Oliver Holt's tweeted it. Joel Bayer's tweeted it.
Carragher has Henry Winter.
Yeah. Everyone has.
Arsenal fans.
Gillan
and
Ballagay.
Both have.
If we get this independent regulator, can we regulate on shit in the nose? Like Gwilym.
We'll put that on the list, but maybe toward the bottom. I say we, like I'll be anything to do with it.
Yeah, we are, innit?
So in the comments saying, who's Blake? Blake's my 2-year-old daughter,
Yeah.
who apparently is now saying UTFP.
Jamie Carragher's tweeted, enough is enough. Sign and share this petition to stop the ESL from coming back. With an independent regulator, we have an opportunity to save our game.
If you're outside the UK and you can't sign it, why don't you share it and say, for everyone in the UK, sign this?
Here's a random postcode for you. My old postcode, my first ever one was B192BQ.
Is that, I don't know if it's libel, but it certainly seems dodgy. Getting people to do an actual house you used to live in.
Yeah, it's gone now.
Oh, it's
Knocked
gone.
it down.
Knocked it down.
It's mad though, because they said they were knocking it down. And I drove past there, because I always like to reminisce. I drove past there the other day, and the space was still there, but loads of caravans were just on it. So they knocked it down, but made way for caravans.
Shout out to Leicester for winning the FA Cup this weekend.
Oh
Congratulations.
yeah, hold
on
tight
that.
them.
I think Leicester, seeing their owners on the pitch and seeing it being genuine rather than what we saw at the Super Bowl, like everyone wanted Tom Brady to be lifting that thing. Everyone was Tom Brady, wasn't it? And then we see the owners being the ones that are lifting the trophy, and it felt a bit. It didn't sit right with me, that, to be honest with you. With send that to me so I can have a look at it in a bit. When it was the Leicester owner being on the pitch, there was genuine joy in the players' faces.
And they were like, quick,
He
come
didn't
on,
want to get involved,
arm around the
and
shoulder.
they made him get involved.
Kasper Schmeichel's like dragging him on the pitch and like, I mean, can you even imagine? The only way, well, actually, I'm not going to say that. I was going to say the only way Joe Glazer would be getting dragged on the pitch was if it was by those fans a couple of weeks ago. and it wouldn't end with the trophy being lifted.
No, it wouldn't have ended the same way. That'd be a lynching. Yeah. It wouldn't have gone well down for him. So I thought it was. But Joe, what Leicester are showing you how to run a club. Yes, they've spent money, but what have they done? They've invested in their infrastructure. I tweeted at the weekend, we'd still be playing at the Bleeding Cliff if it hadn't been built prior to the Glazers coming in. 100%.
They never would have made a new training ground.
Oh,
They've not made. Not only would they not have made a new training ground, they're putting porter cabins in the car park of the current one rather than spend actual cash to build it. They've done less than
What's mental
fuck
as
all.
well is obviously, I don't watch them, so I don't have that emotional connection. But if you look at how why Casey Stone has left Manchester United women as well, it's phenomenal. It was almost like the Glazers went, this women's football thing's starting to make a few quid, isn't it? Should we make a team? And then they made a team, and then it didn't make as much money as they wanted. And then
there was a reason that it was either a broadcast deal or something where they had to have a women's team to qualify for it. It was one of those things. But
the broadcast deal.
No, but even like
so they
just
thought there
FA
was more money in it than there actually was.
No, I actually don't think it was that. Like to actually be a qualified FA community club, which I'm pretty sure the FA have
the FA charters. And
yeah,
all
you
that
have
bollocks.
to have multi-gender teams, so you have to have women's teams and men's teams, and I think that was one of the things one of the reasons behind why United did it. Like my sister played for United ladies up until she was 18 because it was just.
Because you had to then go City, didn't you, to play first team?
No, she was at City
football.
first, then went to United, and she had to go to Oldham afterwards because there was no United women's team. So it was obviously only a few years ago when they brought it back.
Yeah, but even stuff like that just show you how the Glazers regard certain things, and if there's no comeback, Like they must have thought, yo, we got you 2 American players this year. Like, why aren't you winning the league?
Well, they're meant to be good American players.
But yeah, I think Leicester, they've shown they've spent some money on players. They've not done it all for free, but they've spent really well on players. They've picked up some really good bargains, even like Johnny Evans, whatever they got. Was it like 6 million they got Johnny Evans for?
Ludicrous, yeah.
Like they've been sensational in their recruitment. They've spent a shit ton on their training facility. It looks sensational. I said we'd literally still be at the cliff with them old school PE benches right, if it was down to the Glazers, and we had to rely on them. We're up to 12,000 on the petition. Keep it going. It needs to be 100,000. Let's hit 100,000 today.
And like you said, I think you tweeted the other day, didn't you? Where it's like you look at some of these American high schools, and they've got better training facilities than United have.
You mean all of them?
Yeah, well, new investment at Texas High School, and it's like 150 million spent on a new training facility, and you think like, I know it's not a bad thing at all, and obviously Ryan Hopper's a friend of the show and a friend of ours, but the fact that like
he's not your friend, he hates you.
Yeah, we're in a different group.
Oh.
We've got a WhatsApp group.
Oh, then a friend of ours collectively. 2/3 of us he's a friend of. But the fact that like Manchester United don't have private coaches like Ryan or there's plenty of others coming in and working specifically with players under the sort of umbrella and viewing of Manchester United, it's like Bruno Fernandes has to go and get private training.
Right, do you know what's a piss take? Is that I actually have that for Paddock. I have Hopper take 6 of my players at once.
Yeah.
Like, I've organised that because I recognised the benefit to Stretford Paddock as a whole. So extra training is laid on for players who want to take it, and half a dozen of them at a time go to Hopper and do sessions. The fact that United haven't recruited him, he won't say because it's just confidential who, but there's agencies that are hiring him to coach groups of their players. Some of those players are at United players. He's not allowed to talk about them players, though. But United, if I'm Manchester United, I mean, what's Hopper going to cost me in the grand scheme of things? Probably a fraction of 1% of one of these players' wages to just have him. And do you know what? I actually think he'd do it for free for being able to do it and just say, I want you at Carrington 3 times a week to run an hour and a half session, or do 3-4 hours back to back. He trains 8-9 hours a day, Ryan. So like. You could easily hire, and there's loads of them. There's Jamie Velocity, there's Yan Developments, there's RH. There's actually a shitload of these guys around Manchester that are doing this one-to-one coaching, and every single one of those coaches United players. I know they all coach United players. So the fact that United players are going out and seeking this extra coaching is frankly embarrassing because you've got the facilities, and guess what? The players are literally there every single day. You could easily put on a buffet of coaching afterwards and even hire all 3 of them, Jan, Jamie and Ryan, and say, right, whichever one you prefer. They'll be here, they'll be in United training.
It's your least favourite
gear.
buffet, that, isn't it?
Yeah. They train for a couple of hours a day and then go and do some technical work.
Yeah.
Like, you could easily do that.
Steve, just for anyone who's missed it or for anyone who's just joined us or who's joined us in the last few minutes, can you go through that open letter again and just kind of
we'll do it in a sec. 1 sec. I got some super chats to go through. So Richard Martin says, just signed it up. You legends, up the Paddock, you rule. Nietzsche says, does any of you have season tickets? Will you give them up to get rid of the Glazers? That would be the only way really to hurt them financially. Right. Well, some people think fight them from inside. I'm not getting a ticket till it's full house proper anyway. Don't want to go back yet. But I haven't. If people want to go to games, I can't argue with that. I've been doing it since 2005, so who am I to say anything about that? Lads, did you see Bruno is going to Sir Alex? Yeah, I've seen some quote of him wanting to speak to Sir Alex, which is great. And I had another one here. Petition already at 12k. Good work, lads, for Fergal. Thank you very much. So let's go through some key questions, some FAQs on this whole petition, seeing as we've got some new people in that might not have already been here yet. So there's an open letter which reads, as football fans, we were appalled by the attempt to set up a European Super League. It was a direct threat to the integrity of the game, destroying the concept of sporting merit and open competition. Supporters came together with one voice to oppose a cynical power grab by a group of wealthy owners. The furious protests were heard and the breakaway fell apart. Now we must make sure this never happens again. Without swift and direct intervention, the return of a European Super League will be a constant threat. We welcome the fan-led government review of the game and hope it leads to lasting change in an array of important concerns, including coordinated strategies to deal with the racism, supporters' representation within clubs, LGBTQ issues, ticket costs, and the distribution of income. All of those aims can be realised if we take decisive action now. It's time to act. We must support government legislation to block any Premier League clubs attempting to abandon the country's football pyramid and the appointment of an independent football regulator. This regulatory body would have a duty to represent the interests of supporters, protect against bad practices, adjudicate as the overarching body on matters involving the FA, Premier League, EFL, and generally seek to prioritise the wider good of the game rather than allow clubs to solely act in their own self-interests. We, the undersigned, have a voice in the media. We want your voices to join with ours. Your voices are more important. Say no to European Super League. Say yes, changing the game for better. Sign the petition. The link's in the chat. To make your voice heard peacefully. Signed by various different sporting media outlets, including Stretford Paddock, Andy Mitten, Redmen TV, Arsenal Fan TV, Rory Jennings, and then obviously people after TV like Rio, Gary Neville, Jamie Carragher, Henry Winter, Laura Woods, etc. It was important that Stretford Paddock were on that. But obviously we did have a lot of questions about it in those meetings as well. It was one of the reasons why I didn't want my own personal name on there, because I still want to be in a position to be able to criticise and debate. And that's not saying if you're on it, you can't. But I feel like I want to be in a position to still be able to do that while supporting it and promoting it and pushing it through my own channels, which is massively important. So there's some questions that will come off it. So I'll ask you the questions, Steve. Pretend I'm dumb. I do that quite well, don't I?
It's a hat you wear confidently.
Yeah. Why do we need this regulator, Stephen Arson?
Do you want the DS answer or do you want my
I
answer?
want your answer because let's
my
speak
answer
in
is
layman terms.
All right.
Let's speak in layman terms to the people because look, we've got these key FAQs and we can upload them as a screenshot on our community section. But people want to hear it from our perspective. They don't want to hear that regurgitated out, which Gary Neville can read to them if he wants.
All right. Well, in my opinion, the FA is not fit for purpose in terms of as a regulatory body. It does a pretty good job of admin stuff, and obviously I've seen a deeper side of that running a non-league football club, and some of the actual mechanics of the things that the FA do is quite
and there's a hell of a lot of admin that they have to do.
Mate, it's mind-blowing.
In terms of, it's not like they're not doing stuff, but they don't do enough.
No, and I think when you've seen Frank Sinatra that came into Manchester City was an actual crook. Isn't he wanted in Thailand, or is in jail in Thailand or something like that? And they had zero issues with him coming and becoming the owner of Manchester City. The FA has proven, and here's the thing, it's not about, what do you want to reform the FA? Yeah, that would be a good idea, but it's not enough. The FA has had 150 years to make this happen, and it's prevented nothing, really, has it? It was the Monopolies and Mergers Commission that come and stopped B-Sky B from buying Manchester United, not the FA. The FA allowed the Glazers to come in and rinse the football club. Like, the FA have seemingly just done. They seem to not act. They seem like they've got no teeth and no desire to have teeth. Like, they seemingly just do nothing. They don't really have any sort of protection for fans on their own competitions. You look at some of the ticket prices for the FA Cup finals, it's a piss take. So you need someone that sits above. I mean, the FA can't dictate to the Premier League because it's a separate governing body. The EFL is a separate company. So you've essentially got three people sitting around the table. Basically, us three sitting around the table. He's wearing a Premier League hat, I'm wearing an FA hat, you're wearing an EFL hat. And we don't always agree. You need a different body that unites all of them and has power over all of them. Because the FA doesn't have the power over the EFL, and the EFL doesn't have the power over the Premier League. No. You need one body that's going to sit across all of them and actually have some power given to it by government. And my personal opinion, this isn't the opinion of anyone at this table as far as I'm aware, or anyone that signed that position, but my opinion on this is, I believe an owner's license is what you should have, and it should be granted on the back of a certain section amount of criteria. Is your club not in £1 billion worth of debt? You don't get a fucking owner's license. And then I don't know what happens next after that. Like, because do you just get to kick United out if they don't get the owner's license? I don't know the next step for that. That's something that needs a little bit more discussion, I think. But I think that there's got to be some regulation to prevent this with the power to just say to these clubs, guess what? You ain't doing that.
And what do you think, or what is the goal of this petition? Feel free to chip into any of these questions, Joe.
Well, I mean, the goal is to, like you said, Steve, to get people in and get a body in there that has football at the heart of its focus, and football and protecting football and forwarding the ideas and the wants of football and football fans, rather than pandering to the wants of billionaires. I mean, look at the Premier League, which was set. When was it set up? 1993, 1992.
93 was the first season.
Yeah.
It was set up in like 91 or 1990. It might have been set up.
So that was set up then. Look, the money in the game at the time. It's and obviously the Premier League was set up to create money, but the Premier League has allowed the owners and allowed the clubs to get away from it. The Premier League has no authority over football anymore, and obviously the FA doesn't, and it was taken away around that time. But look at what the owners tried to do a month ago. It's clear that the amount of money that's in football, the Premier League can't keep up as any sort of way of stopping these things from happening, because you've got multi-billion-pound industries owned by multi-billionaires who can say, well, we don't need the Premier League anymore. And it needs to be someone that's sort of governing from above, not underneath, which is where the Premier League are. They've made this platform so that everyone can get rich. Well, now people are too rich, and with that comes the power to say, fuck the Premier League, we're going to do our own thing. And someone needs to be able to stop that, because at the moment, it was a mixture of those owners and billionaires bottling it because they got nervous that the fans would riot, and a mixture of players not wanting to get kicked out of the Euros and World Cups. Other than that, I don't see why anyone would be able to stop them next time. You know, if they come up with a better package, more money for people, you know, a better way of selling it to certain sections of fan bases as something like a Super League, then at some point it will happen, and people need to be there to stop that.
I think an important thing as well is, I think when you look at the FA over the years, and even more so now, it doesn't represent it doesn't represent all the different types of people that are in there. It's these old white folks from back in the day, all making the same decisions.
Was it Greg Dyke that was just
was out there calling
racist?
Asians up shit and all sorts, like just.
And they didn't even sack him.
He was just like, send the buggers back.
How can you be a governing body that promotes like the anti-racism message that the FA's got as one of its key messages, and not sack a guy being racist who's the head of your organisation?
Mm. And
like,
it's just incredible. Like, and it will be more representative of the fans. And I don't just mean by race. I don't just mean, oh yeah, there'll be no white guy. I mean, in terms of working class people, in terms of a cross section of the country, even like London doesn't represent football, bruv.
Yeah,
like London isn't football, really but that's where the FA is. Like, so you then get voices amplified that aren't just the same old traditional voices within football, which has to change.
That's really important.
And like even on that call, like, you know, there was a little. I bet that call was more diverse than any meeting the FA have ever had.
100%.
In terms of,
in fact, you was on it made it more fucking diverse than any.
But I mean, even like if you just take out colour, like even in terms of like just where everyone's
people from the north,
like
working
just,
class
you know what I mean?
people. Yeah, it's not just like you know, people of colour, but it's like actually representing people from around the country who have different experiences rather than just I live in London, let me go to a match.
How many Mancs you think work for the FA? No. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, I reckon there's not a lot.
Yeah.
And that's where football's at. That's where the heartland of football is. You know what I mean? So there needs to be more representation of everybody, whether it's, you know, class and all that.
Yeah, and then back to the point of the petition. I know most of you will know this, but in terms of signing the petition, the more signatures that gets, sort of different criteria have to be met by the government. So it's over 15,000 people have signed. It's 16,670 according to Liam. That means that it has to be referenced and referred to by the government now, doesn't it? 100,000 means it has to be debated in Parliament, and basically anything after that just adds pressure and it adds a sort of a coherence to a voice that we haven't really had in terms of this sort of government-led or fan-led government brought in legislation to a regulatory body. So the more signatures this gets, the more it has to be
17K
attended to. Yeah, exactly.
So it's going up rapidly. If you haven't signed it yet, make sure you sign it right now. Satsang says governance of anything in this country is so London-centric. Yeah, I know. Shit, innit? But yeah, get signing the link, signing the petition. The link's in the description and in the live chat. We are now on 17,000. We've just breached that mark. 100K is, I reckon that will be done by this time tomorrow. 100K.
Could be.
It does
Started
feel
off
like
pretty
it's
well.
going that
It
way.
started off pretty well.
That's the thing you need to keep pushing, don't
The
you?
thing
I
is, you
know-
got Laura Woods, who was on the radio like when I was driving in,
Yeah.
so she would have spoken about it straight away. You got us guys going live. You got G, Nev, Rio. Like,
I think G-Nev's coming on Vibe with 5 this week to talk about it. I believe Rio and or Gary will be coming on here later this week to talk about it. So,
well, I want to get back on with Gary, to be honest, because me and him having a chat about this would be good, especially considering our last conversation.
me and Carragher would be fun.
And that is true. It's like, yo. So hopefully we'll get a few bits of good content out of this as well. But the most important thing is get signing that petition. Get hitting that like button, comment, share, subscribe as well. It can, Vinay said, it can't be signed by foreigners, right? You can. That word foreigners is like a word that's not racist but feels racist, isn't it? To me, anyway.
Yeah.
You can just put. Give them a random postcode.
Yeah.
Go on.
S194-1L.
Random postcode.
M436GB.
That's my postcode. What the fuck?
I'm just checking whose postcode that is because it's definitely a mate's.
It's just in your head somewhere you don't know where.
My old postcode B19 2BQ.
Steve's accidentally given away some secret army base there,
No,
haven't
it's
you?
in Drawes, don't worry about
People are going to search my old postcode now and see the shithole I used to live in, which is good, I suppose. But yeah,
it. Yeah, it's Manor Road. It's Manor Road in Drawes.
we're going to get out of here now. Thank
You don't live
you
there
for tuning in. Remember, if you want more information, that website link's dead now. Can't
Which
find
one? Reclaim the game?
it. Yeah. If you want more information, we'll post
No,
a
I think
letter
the internet's down in here.
on the communities. We'll post a letter on the community section.
Yeah.
We'll post a link to the petition on the community section. Get it signed. Any final words? No.
Yeah,
Thank
I'm
you.
just going to
Oh.
say reclaim the game. I think I can't load it up. We'll be live later on anyway. We'll talk about that.
See you later.